Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 846. There's no crime in football. Hello, Big Chillians. Welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, things are going pretty well. We're recording slightly later as planned because you needed a little bit of a lie-in, but it worked out well because otherwise we would have had another episode where a coach was going to be fired pre-release. And so at least this time we record with the knowledge that Sean McDermott was fired as the Bills head coach.
Yeah, I guess you got the text that I wanted to sleep in a little more, but I guess the NFL did not get the text, and they thought perfect release time, as always, right after the Big Chill Podcast finishes recording, but they did not get the memo, so here we are. And I guess that's the easiest way to start talking about the Divisional Round playoffs. I mean, that Bills game, not so great. Not a great look for McDermott, not the best of looks for Josh Allen.
See, I can get why they're moving on from McDermott because ultimately this is, 7 seasons, something along those lines. And there have been lots of games where his play calling or strategy has been a little bit questionable. He's had a top 3 quarterback for most of that time period and has yet to even get them to the Super Bowl. At the same time, they've come up short in really close games in a lot of instances where I'm not sure it's really his fault. Like even Saturday, it feels harsh that that's his final game in charge of the Bills because aside from the decision at the end of the half to kind of try and go for points in a situation where they were never going to have anything, like only something bad could happen. Aside from that, I don't think they really made any. There was nothing Sean McDermott did there that felt like that's the reason why they lost. Josh Allen just played extremely badly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, I don't know. I mean, I guess you can argue they let up that touchdown at the very end, which they then got the field goal after that to tie it. So maybe it was just like a wimpy defense up 4 with the game on the line, like have to make a stop. But I mean, I think more often than not now in the NFL, we see teams are successful at being able to like counter a score. Like I think it's getting progressively harder and harder at end of games to stop teams from getting late scores. I think it happened in, well, I'd say every game, but every close game this week, maybe, but other than that, I mean, the overtime, is the interception his fault? Is that call his fault? The deep bomb on 3rd and 7 instead of just trying to get a first down?
No, because I mean, it almost works, right? Like you could argue the play call is good. It's a good throw.
It's just a bad ref. They should have fired the ref.
It was 3rd and 11.
Okay.
So you have to call something fairly adventurous. You're almost in a no punt scenario because you're on your own 36, but you know that the next time the Broncos get the ball, it's the next score wins. So you're not in 4 down territory because you're not punting from your own, but near on, I mean, that would be the only criticism. You could have treated that as 4 down territory and gone for an 8-yard, 9-yard completion and then had a really manageable 4th down. At the same time, you could say Josh Allen was playing really, really badly and maybe letting him try to air the ball out was the safer play than having him do something else. And in the end, it's close to being the game-winning move and just worked badly.
Yeah. I guess we can discuss the catch because obviously that is a hot topic right now, the catch turned interception. I will just read 2 tweets from Dan Orlovsky, who's an ESPN analyst. He said, "This is an NFL playoff game got ruled this in an NFL playoff game got ruled an interception and ended Buffalo's season. Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, question mark. This is a catch every time." And then Richard Sherman posted, I have never seen a contested catch like this ever be called anything but a catch. Even as a DB, you know that if it's even a tie, it'll go to the wide receiver. Can't believe this decided the game.
Yeah, so I'm not the first person to have this thought, but it's what struck me in watching it. To me, it's an interception, and the reason for it is pretty clear, which is yes, they're right that usually a contested catch, the tie goes to the receiver, so to speak. And so if they had just been continued to be rolling on the ground with the ball, both holding onto it, you would expect it to be ruled a catch. However, that's not what happened. He instantaneously lets go of the ball, and the Broncos defensive back rolls away with it. And the easiest explanation for me for this is if in rolling away with it, the defensive back had then let the ball go, and it just falls onto the ground, it's clearly an incompletion. So if you're saying that if the defensive back hadn't held onto it, it's an incompletion, then it's an interception. It can't be both. It can't, and we've kind of established that.
But but it can be both in the NFL because the rules are so fucking convoluted.
No, it can be, and they need to. As I said, there's elements of the catch rule that have to be clarified. This actually, to me, isn't really one of them, but it's the inconsistency here of, oh, we'll freeze frame it and show that he's in control of the ball, kind of, with his knee down. Okay, but the problem here is like, if he'd done that in the end zone, and so let's say his knee had got out the back of the end zone, and then he had rolled out of bounds, and as he rolls out, the defensive back now takes the ball away from him. Now what's that now? It's obviously not an incompletion because the defensive back would have been out of bounds. But would they now rule it a catch? Like, it's these inconsistencies of like going out in the end zone, establishing instantaneous possession sometimes in the end zone, or as you go out of bounds, how different that interpretation is. That's where I think there has to be consistency. To me, I felt fine with this being an incompletion. It's just a sequence of events that's so tremendously unlikely that we'll probably never see this particular instance happen again.
Well, it is very similar to the catch we saw. Was that this year or last year? The one that everyone's comparing it to that was ruled the other way? Was that the beginning of this season, that one?
But the difference there, so the catch it's being compared to is the catch against the Bills against the Patriots, which was this season. And the difference is there. It's exactly kind of what I was mentioning, which is they continue to both fight for the ball. And so there, the sort of decision on the field is that the Bills player makes the catch, and then it's a simultaneous possession, and the rule states that a simultaneous possession, the benefit of the doubt is going to the offensive player. So, like, the fact that he literally, you're dealing with Cook, like, losing possession of the ball. That's the big difference here.
Yeah. And I mean, so there's like a screenshot. This is where I get mixed up. So there's a screenshot that everyone's stopping. And I'll just show Eddie, we can put it up on the social media. It's this one where like the guy's down on the ground and the Denver player has his arms like around the Buffalo player's arms. And everyone's kind of saying like, that's clearly a catch. It's clearly a catch. But at the same time, it's like, but the Denver guy has both his hands on the ball. It just happens to be that the guy's arm is in between his hands. Like if you go up and jump for a ball and you have the ball in your hands and a defender's arm is kind of like through your arms, you still have the ball. Like just because the defender has an arm in between doesn't mean that or the Buffalo player has his arm in between doesn't mean that the Broncos defender doesn't have a strong grip on that ball. Like he equally has possession of that ball as much as the Buffalo Bills guy does. So like as they're falling down, yes, it kind of looks like the Bills guy is down with the ball, but the Broncos player had his hands just as much on the ball the entire way down.
Yeah. And look, the freeze frames and the slow motions can be so misleading, and the angle that you watch it from. The reality is, if you watch it in real time, there is no doubt that the ball is instantly out as soon as he's hitting the ground. Like he has no control over the ball as soon as he hits the ground. And, it's one of those things that gets trotted out by the rules analyst every single game you watch of you must maintain possession through the ground. Just because, yes, you can freeze it and it looks like he has the ball and his knee is down, that's not where the play stops. And I think it's tough. I feel like this is the right call. And to be perfectly honest with you anyway, if you're a staunch Bills fan or you really feel as if they should feel aggrieved by this call, there's a very obvious holding call at the end of regulation in the end zone, which should have been a
Yeah.
penalty in the end zone, a safety, and effectively game over at that stage. So even if you want to say that was a pretty big miss, the difference there is they would have lost the game, and this play would have never happened had the holding penalty been called in for the safety. Versus, okay, this put the Broncos in a very good position, but it still put the Broncos in their own half. Like, the Bills could have got a defensive stop and got the ball back, and then this would have just been, an interesting but not impactful play.
Yeah, that hold was definitely a hold too. Like, even I think,
Yeah.
was that Romo? Was that game? Even Romo calls, he's like, "Oh, Jim, are they gonna get a hold in the end zone here?" And it's like, "No, actually, it's just a first down."
Yeah. Yeah, and they kind of moved on from that pretty quickly and even didn't really discuss. And to be perfectly honest with you, now if you're a Broncos fan, you should be more upset because had that just been called, the game doesn't end with Bo Nix having a fractured ankle and you're going into
Yeah.
the AFC Championship game with a healthy quarterback instead of the scenario that they find themselves in, which is they're either playing their backup or desperately making calls to recently retired NFL quarterbacks, hoping that someone can step in and play in an AFC Championship game. And so, really, in terms of if the two major controversial moments of that game, it's the Broncos who should feel more upset with that they got the short end of the stick, not the Bills.
Yeah, the new, starting quarterback for the Broncos as of now, you alluded to the fact maybe they go bring someone in, which would be kind of crazy, but, it's Jarrett Stidham. So Stidham has been around for a while, but not played much. So I think he was drafted in, like, 2019,
I think he has
but
4
has not
NFL
played
starts.
much. Yeah.
And he had one really good game, which I remember he played against the 49ers for the Raiders in the week 17 game at the time when it was a 17-week season, and he played well in that. So that's the sort of if you're a Broncos fan, you have to hope that that's an indication that he can step in. And the Broncos supposedly internally think very highly of him. In particular, Sean Payton thinks very highly of him. And I guess the best spin is Bo Nix really that good? So we're not here because our quarterback was putting in amazing performances. We're winning because our defense is excellent, and we just need a quarterback who doesn't make many mistakes. And an NFL backup should kind of be able to come in and be competitive. But obviously, it's a major blow to be going into a game of this magnitude and not have your starting quarterback available.
Yeah, maybe this is the next Nick Foles.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, the Bo Nix injury is so bizarre because it's for an injury seemingly as severe as it was. It's not even clear exactly where or how it
Yeah.
happened. So that's the
Yeah.
strange thing.
It
Like,
just
seemingly,
happened.
seemingly it's on the kind of 3-4 yard gain he picked up right before the deep pass, with a
The
pass
QB
interference.
rollout run. Yeah.
Yeah, but he then seemed okay on the subsequent play. Like, you watch the replays, he gets up and he's limping slightly from that, but then it obviously doesn't hold him back on a relatively deep throw where he also has to move a little bit prior to that. But yeah, not good. He obviously had surgery, so there's no chance he's playing this week.
Hey, don't say never.
No, but I mean, Josh Allen, I'm also going to really bad Josh Allen performance. And he
Yeah.
should feel guilty. He came into his press conference after and apologized to his teammates and felt that he let them down. I think he really ultimately now has let down Sean McDermott because that's the person who's paid the ultimate price for his terrible performance. I'm all in favor. I don't want this to take a sort of toxic masculinity turn, and I'm all in favor of men being open about their emotions and being able to show that they're struggling and show weakness. I don't think someone should be judged for that. All that being said, I do judge Josh Allen slightly for going into a press conference still kind of sobbing. Like, ultimately, whilst I understand that would have been a really tough loss and he may feel like he really let his team down because he did with probably the worst performance of his career, I kind of want a quarterback, if I'm thinking about someone who needs to be the leader of the team, who maybe has that emotional moment, even with his teammates and around people. I'm not saying he has to hide away and not show that weakness. But at the moment when he's going to speak to the press, I might want someone who can get a little bit more composed for that. And I gotta say, I think it reduces my, like, I don't think Tom Brady walks into a press conference with tears pouring out of his face. And it does make me question a little bit. You love talking about clutchness and being a gamer, and we'll get onto that with, I think, probably some disagreement when we speak about the Bears game. But y- it does make me have slight thoughts there about, from a leadership perspective, how I feel about Josh Allen.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't bother me too much. I mean, he was just upset that they lost. I mean, at the same time, don't you want a quarterback who clearly has emotions in the game, like is
You,
clearly playing for something and not, just doing a job and not caring? I mean, he definitely cares.
yeah, I'm sure he does. But for example, we got the college football championship game tonight. If one of those quarterbacks puts in a Josh Allen-esque performance, if Mendoza goes out and just has the worst performance of his collegiate career, and he is the reason why Indiana does not win this national championship game, you can't tell me that it would not hurt his draft stock slightly if he then came. It would actually be kind of what I would expect from Mendoza, maybe. But if he came out sobbing into the press conference post-match, there would be question marks there of, do you really want to draft this guy? Are you sure this guy is, when the going gets tough, that's what you want from the person who you are entrusting with being the leader of your whole team, which is ultimately what the starting quarterback is. And again, I'm not saying he shouldn't be able to be upset. And you're right, it's good if you're a Bills fan, it shows a level of emotional investment. You don't want a guy who just walks out and says, "Yeah, that was kind of disappointing. I didn't play very well, but I am looking forward to the vacation I'm about to go on." That would be on the other side of the spectrum that I definitely don't
Yeah.
want. But there is part of me that just thinks, you kind of want the guy who behind the closed door is there crying and then goes, "Whoop, right, got to go out and be the face of the Bills right now. Let me compose myself and go out there and get this press conference done. I can talk about my disappointment and how much it hurts me, but I don't have to be getting the Kleenex out at the same time."
I guess some people just can't turn on the robot face as well as others, I guess.
Maybe not, but my point is, historically, we've probably seen semi-robots be the most successful athletes.
Maybe just Tom Brady.
Michael Jordan? You think Peyton Manning comes out crying? I don't think so. I'll put it even this way. Eli Manning doesn't come out crying. Like, the biggest defense you would have of Eli Manning is, I think, regardless of where you feel about him from a talent perspective, is that there's a composure there within him that would have been maintained even in that really challenging moment.
Maybe right as he was about to go out, Sean McDermott pulled him aside and said, "Guess what? I just fucking got fired and it's all your fucking fault." All right, go up and talk.
If that's what comes out, I'll give him a minor pass. But I
Okay.
don't think that's what happened.
Hey,
Because
big
Sean
boy,
McDermott
thanks
didn't
for the
come out.
firing.
Sean McDermott didn't come out crying. He did come out weirdly voice cracking, saying that he had to defend the Buffalo Bills. But
Yeah.
so it wasn't a good look for any of the Bills post game, I have to be honest with you. Because then they went to, and this one I don't mind more, and I can't remember who the offensive defensive lineman is, who they then went and interviewed in the locker room and said, "Oh, Josh Allen said he let you down." And then he kind of starts crying. And he's like, "Josh didn't let us down." It's like, what is this? This is a bunch of 6-year-olds playing for the Bills? Like, and again, I'm not saying men can't have emotions, and that's a super disappointing moment, but I don't know. It it reduces. I'm now in the. I don't think Josh Allen will win a Super Bowl. I'm now in
Wow.
that camp. All right, should we move on to the second game of the weekend,
Skip.
which we can spend the shortest period of time on? Seattle absolutely blew the doors off the 49ers, and it was a mismatch regardless. But the fact that then over the course of the game, the 49ers then suffered further injuries, which meant that whatever offensive weapons they had going into the game, they basically were completely running on fumes by the end of it. I don't think it would have mattered. It baffles me. Testing post locker room interviews. I don't know if you saw Lenore, who said that if he felt like if the Niners had been fully healthy, that the Niners would have blown the Seahawks out. I don't know. I don't know. That's expecting a 70-point swing because of a few guys being healthy seems a little bit generous, but ultimately, the Seahawks do look really good. Defensively, they look really fast. They get pressure on the quarterback. They attack the ball. Sam Darnold played well, even though he was clearly struggling with his oblique injury at times. But the reality is the Niners needed everything to kind of go right in that game. And once it started with a kickoff return touchdown and they were immediately playing from behind, it was always going to be tough.
That recorded as a small mini earthquake. Did you see that? That's crazy. The stadium got so loud and it was shaking so much that it literally registered as like a mini earthquake. Yeah, I think if you were either the Niners or a Niners fan and you didn't know what was happening and you fast forward to the playoffs, you say, hey, you made it to the divisional round. The leading rusher in that game was Brock Purdy, and your leading receiver was Jake Tongas. How do you guys think you did in that game?
But you and I had that conversation before because you wanted the Tongas over, and there he was. That was not an encouraging sign for me pregame. Yeah, it was. Everything went wrong, and it wasn't even Brock Purdy didn't play badly. He didn't play well either. There were mistakes there. There was terrible play calling on fourth downs in periods when the game was actually kind of close enough. And actually, as we were speaking about during the game, I actually felt like the Niners defense played reasonably well, despite this. You can look at the scoreline and feel, until it was game over and everyone was kind of checked out. But they kept that, even going into halftime, it was kind of a game. And if the Niners had, to be perfectly honest with you, and Shanahan has been an excellent head coach and play caller throughout this. And so you can't be overly critical of him for the fact that he couldn't win a game when he was, completely mismatched from a talent perspective. The fourth down play calling was terrible at critical moments. And then ultimately, settling for field goals in a game in which they clearly needed touchdowns, you may as well have just gone for it on fourth down and hoped. And what was it, if they could have got to halftime at 17-10 or 17-14 and told yourselves this is doable, but even at 17-6, getting the ball at the start of the second half, even if they'd strung a touchdown drive together at that point, they weren't going to win the second half by 12 points. So the field goals weren't going to get the job done, and I get it. He probably knew deep down, maybe even before the game, that they weren't going to win it, but you had to risk more if you had any chance of winning.
Yeah, and I'll slightly defend the Niners. I mean, Kenneth Walker III had 19 carries for 116 yards and 3 TDs. I think about 100 of those 116s happened during holding plays that were not called. I mean, it was pretty unbelievable that the Seahawks ended the game with 2 penalties for 5 yards because every fucking play there was a hold. That part was a little frustrating to watch. At least call one, give them 1 or 2. But there were a few where like a DN literally just got like ripped to the side, and then Kenneth Walker just went around the end. Because the DN had lost contain because he was getting held. But I mean, overall, you're right. The Niners defense didn't play that bad, and I don't know if that's indicative of a good Niners defense or if Seattle's offense just wasn't that great. I mean, they didn't even put up 300 yards, which when you score 41 points and to not put up 300 yards is kind of impressive. Almost.
Well, they had a lot of they did have a few short fields, so that also helps. But yeah. No, I wasn't blown away. Look, it would be easy to see that, just look at the score lines and then come out of that thinking that the Seahawks should be prohibitive favorites to win the Super Bowl because of the manner of that performance. And then when you also think in the couple final weeks of the season, beating both the 49ers and prior to that, the Rams. So you kind of think like going into this rematch against the Rams at home, I don't know. My takeaway from that is, yeah, I agree. Their offense still concerns me, no matter how good their defense is, and I don't fully trust Sam Darnold, and that a healthy Niners team may have at least asked a few more questions in a few bigger moments and maybe put that more to the test, but they just weren't in a position to do so. If I really wanted to go kind of the sad part, I think, from a 49ers perspective, yes, I think Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback, and they should feel confident moving forward with him. And there are some good, you should feel more encouraged about that defense improving over the course of the season if they can hold on, assuming that Robert Saleh doesn't get a head coaching job, which at the moment seems unlikely. They might be entering a rebuild period just based on the health status of so many of their offensive weapons. And can you trust? You can't have that many, s- pieces that are not reliable over the course of the season. And it's very difficult right now to think that you're going to get, say, 13 plus games from George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall. So those are your three biggest offensive weapons, and you may get them, all three of them, healthy on the field 10 times next season. And that's, unless you get super lucky and that happens to be the playoffs, that's going to put you in a bad position season after season. So that's going to be the one tough thing that I don't know how you move forward from.
So overall, you've been able to get past this loss by just chalking it up to didn't really have a chance to begin with.
Well, as listeners of the podcast will know, I picked the Seahawks to win and the Seahawks to cover the spread. So it's not as if I came into this game expecting something, like, yeah, you always hope because you never know. They were playing so well that they were going to be able to dig something out, and Sam Darnold might put in a performance that was similar to what we saw from him last year with the Vikings, which was just horrific in the playoffs. But no, I think, what are you going to do? Like, ultimately, you look at the personnel that were on the field for the majority of that game. Why do you expect them to be winning a playoff game? Like, I hope that Shanahan's play calling, that play on the first fourth down, it was unfortunate because he actually called a good play on the actual first fourth down before they mysteriously allowed the Seahawks to call a timeout. Because I guess if you just say timeout to one of the officials, half a second before the ball snaps, he has to honor that and then blow the whistle a couple of seconds into a play. That makes no sense to me. But there's an easy rule fix for the NFL, because we had that controversy, I think, in that game, and then similarly on Thanksgiving or whenever it was, when the Packers also had that moment when they kind of
that
called
one
a timeout.
clearly was after.
Yes. How about you say, no, there needs to be a second before the play snaps. Like, if you don't give me that, I'm not giving you the timeout. Like, you can't just scream timeout right as the center is pulling the ball back, and I have to tell you, like, yeah, he said timeout. No, that was fine. The play call, that use check with kind of McCaffrey running as an option outside of him,
God.
so that Juszczyk could just go, here, Christian, you get hit instead of me. Like, that was one
What
of
a
the worst play
terrible
calls
call.
I've seen.
Hey, but listen, you pay the guy $15 million a year. You got to let him touch the ball once a playoff.
And I don't know. You should be Juszczyk's agent. He's clearly getting underpaid. But yeah, Seahawks look good. Yeah, we'll obviously speak about how we feel more about them, I suppose, next episode in terms of the preview with the matchup with the Rams. But yeah, they look good.
Okay, if we're going to stick chronologically, then we can get to the early Sunday game, and that was the Patriots and the Texans. And I have to say, this was one of the crappiest games I've watched in a playoff. It just, I don't know. I don't even think it was the weather. The weather probably played a slight role, maybe a little, but I just think overall both teams were so sloppy. Couldn't really do anything. Couldn't hold on to the ball. Like, so many fumbles, so many like dropped passes, so many just like bad play calls. Like, everyone involved in this game, I think, did a shit job.
Yeah, like, if you're being generous, you watch it and you say, oh, two really good defenses in challenging weather conditions. And so, of course, there were going to be turnovers and sloppy offensive play. But that does not account for the number of turnovers that we saw, and for the fact that there should have been
Eight
more
in total.
turnovers. there should have been 11 or 12. I mean, the Texans failed to fall on two, and one of which like a super crucial fumble because it would have been
right
points
there.
on the board. I want to say this is, can we stop defending NFL players who at times we praise consistently for being the most amazing athletes on earth, for their inability to just fall on a ball at times or even pick it up? And if you tell me it's harder than it thinks, I watch rugby week in, week out, and I know it's a bigger ball and so a little bit easier to deal with, but those are players who are like multiple players moving around them at speed, and you almost never see scenarios where a player's falling on a ball and then it squirts out of them, then they kick it inadvertently, and then one of their hands knocks it forward, and then someone else slides in, and then the ball pops out from them. And we're seeing this in the playoffs now. You could point to 7 or 8 plays where it's literally just a guy not being able to drop on a ball or just put 2 hands on a ball and pick it up. It's
Unbelievable.
inexcusable.
Your usage of the word squirting is quite correct, because like there was twice where a guy jumped on it and the ball literally like shot out of him somehow.
I don't even know how the physics
how
works.
how did that happen?
Unless you told me that the Patriots were lubing up the ball before each snap, like that doesn't even make sense.
And then
to
causing
me.
a lot of squirting after lubing. Is that what you're telling me?
All right, let's not go there. Right, we're a family podcast, but it was it was a bad game. And ultimately, the biggest winner in that Texans Patriots game, I think, was Josh Allen, because CJ Stroud took a little bit of the Josh Allen criticism away, because that was undoubtedly a worse quarterbacking performance in a game, in a kind of more easily winnable game than, again, even though the Bills only lost by 3, and in the end the Texans lost by 12. But when they got the ball back, when they went up 10-7, I thought they were going to win. Like, it just looked
Yeah.
like the Patriots offense couldn't really do anything, and that they were going to consistently, it was like, just don't make any more stupid mistakes and you're going to find yourself right in this game. And then their next 2 possessions, he threw interceptions. And so it went from, and even then, even with the interceptions, they still only the Patriots didn't score on either of those possessions, so they still were in it. And it was bizarre, because as if the Texans and CJ Stroud were then treating every possession as if like, we need to score and we need to score fast.
Yeah.
Like, we better get downfield. And then weirdly, they were like 14-10 down for ages, and they kept treating it that way. And then when they found themselves late in the game in a scenario where they needed to score and score fast, then they didn't try. Then they punted the ball, for example, and you just thought, like, this is strange. What a weird way to manage this game.
Yeah, I mean, the play calling is just awful. At a point, you just have to think, hey, our defense is absolutely dominating the Patriots right now. Like, even if we just run the ball and punt, our defense might be able to get us some points here. Like, let's just not give them the ball with short field. That's basically the only thing we really need to do, guys, is let's not make it easy for them to score. If we make it difficult for them to score, chances are they won't score, or better yet, we score from it, or we turn them over and get better field position than we have now. And it was crazy. I mean, like, I texted you at one point, I had the like Woody Marks rushing over, and halfway through the third quarter, he had 9 carries for 3 yards. He was averaging a foot a carry, literally a foot a carry. And I get it, maybe the run game's not working, but the pass game is working way worse. Like, just keep trying to run. And then actually they did kind of commit to the run a little bit in the third quarter, and then they popped off some decent runs. Like, I think like Chubb had like a 7-yard run, and then like Marks had an 8. Like, it looked like they were kind of getting stuff together, and then I think Stroud just threw another interception.
No,
It's
it was
like,
a
come on,
fumble.
like, oh,
It
that
was
was the
once
fumble. Yes, yeah.
it was the Marks fumble, and basically once they had which was at a crucial stage because they were down by 8, and he fumbles on the Patriots 12. So he was basically picking up the first down to put them like in a really strong position to possibly tie the game, but at least like worst case scenario down by 1 or 2 points, and he fumbled. But even then, and there's so many moments where you're like, that's the game. Uh-oh. And then they forced the Patriots to punt. and then they kick a field goal, which, I mean, credit to Fairbairn because he hit 50-yarders in difficult conditions. Everyone's speaking about how tough the playing conditions were.
Yeah.
He didn't look to be struggling at all.
No.
And like, and their fourth quarter punt, downs.
Great
I mean,
fourth quarter.
it's just, and again, in situations where it was like, oh, they're down by 12, it looks bad, but it's one of those situations, like their defense was playing so well that if you could just get it to a one-score game, that 12 points, as soon as it's 5 points, so much pressure would have been on the Patriots of like, oh gosh, if we punt to them and they're getting the ball on their own 35, 40, we're really in trouble here.
Yeah. And I think, there was a lot of talk about, Will Campbell being such a cornerstone for the Patriots, is their offensive tackle draft pick, and, how he's going to protect Jake Maye. And it turns out the way he's going to protect Jake Maye is just by collecting all his fumbles and saving his career, because Will Campbell had, I think, two or three of two, because he fumbled 4 and they recovered 2. He had both of the other recoveries for Drake Maye, and kind of that definitely saved him. I mean, if all 4 of those fumbles are turnovers, I have to think maybe the Texans put one touchdown together with 2 more.
Maybe.
Probably not, but
probably just instantly fumble it right back. But yeah, and the amazing thing is CJ Stroud came out of that game with a better QBR than Drake Maye.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but and again, we'll have our preview. I came out of that feeling worse about the Patriots. They're lucky that they're now going to have to play the Broncos and a backup quarterback, because I think if you put them against any other team, even if you told me now that the beaten up Niners had to go and play the Patriots, I think I might take the Niners based on what we saw from the Patriots that game. But like, they're lucky. I'm not entirely, the course of this week, I'll think about it, because just how dominant the Broncos defense might be enough. Again, we just witnessed how impactful a good defense can be on the Patriots. And even the Chargers game, which again, their offense did not perform well in that. So the back-to-back playoff games where they offensively have looked horrific. But yeah, I mean, I came out of that game. I do not think the Patriots can win the Super Bowl. I'll put it that way. I do not think they can win 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I don't think so either. That was not a great performance.
Especially if you're telling me that though they would have to play the Broncos defense and then the Seahawks defense. I mean, the Seahawks defense, at the speed at which they operate, Drake Maye might have 19 fumbles in that game. It's like, it's just every snap could be a fumble. All right, and then we can move on to, I guess, the best game of the weekend.
Like, yeah, the maybe. I don't know. The Bills. Yeah, I thought the Bills game was kind of fun. Maybe a little more fun. The Bills game, a little more scoring.
But then Josh Allen was so bad in it. Like there's.
But he overcome it and still scored.
Kind of. Yeah, the Rams sneaking out a win against the Bears, tied at halftime, tied at end of regulation, and then just kicking a game-winning field goal in overtime. A game where I think the Bears will look back on this as a ton of missed opportunities based on their failure to convert red zone opportunities into more touchdowns, going for it on a couple of occasions and not coming away with any points. But at the same time, somehow getting to overtime with another miraculous end of game touchdown. Like, they both feel unlucky and lucky.
Unbelievable.
In the same game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a 40, I think it was like a 55-yard rope that Caleb Williams threw, and somehow Kmet disengaged with the cornerback, and then the cornerback decided to not follow him and just stand there.
It was a push off, and that's fine. I don't mind that not being called. But again, to talk about the inconsistencies of what we see in NFL officiating, that kind of aligns with my mindset of fundamentally last play of the game. It's a broken play and people are scrambling around in the end zone. You can let them be a bit more physical in that scenario. But that's a much bigger offensive player just pushing a defensive player away at a crucial moment in time and somehow, and in the process, giving himself
they were hand fighting.
5-meter radius in which to take a wide open catch. And he may have caught it anyway because he's just a bigger target at that point and he might win that contest. But that is a push off every day of the week.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a push off or not, but what I will say is the defender gets like separated and then kind of just stands there, like doesn't like go back to like recover the guy. It was kind of weird. I don't know what he thought. Did he think like the play was just kind of over?
I think you're not appreciating the impact of how big is he? 6'6" guy pushing you in snowy conditions. The speed, and then you're also trying to track a ball. The impact that would have of just he was not going to get back into position to make a play on the ball. So look, I'm not saying I'm fine with that not being a call, but for the last time, hopefully this season, I will then bring up the end of that Lions game. You can't tell me that the same NFL, the same officiating standards are being applied to how that gets called versus 2 offensive pass interferences that then get called in that Lions game. That's not the same. Like there is no consistency in the approach there. And I prefer the interpretation in that playoff game, so I'm okay with it. It's just don't let us now watch an end of game scenario next week where a wide receiver or a tight end brushes into a guy in the end zone and we get a flag thrown for offensive pass interference. But
So
what we're
I
really
guess
going to get at.
Wait, hold on.
You,
because maybe we're going to talk about the same thing. Wait, no, before we get into that, because I know what you're going to talk about. Before we get into that, they score. There are 18 seconds left in that game. They decide to kick the extra point and bring it to overtime. Was that the call you would have made? Do you go for 2 and try and win the game there with 18 seconds left?
No, because they'd already failed in short yardage situations. You know, they just the possession before the touchdown, they'd had 4th and goal from the 2, so that's a 2-point play, and they hadn't managed to score there. You know, they had sort of struggled in short yardage. They don't have a running back in that scenario where they can really have the threat of trying to punch it in with a sort of power run. The conditions are tough. I think it's the right move, and honestly, ultimately, it turned out to be the right move because then you get the ball back. You get the ball second in overtime in a position to just kick a field goal and win, and find yourself nearly in field goal range, and you just throw a bad interception and lose the game. But like,
yeah,
it played out the way you would hope it would when you decide to settle for 1.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's a little risky there with the way they were playing. The other, before we get to your other comment about Caleb Williams, the other questionable call for me was Sean McVay, the drive before that. So right before the Bears got the ball back to eventually score to tie it, it was a 3rd and 10 on their own 14. And he had run the ball twice before that to run the clock down. The Bears smartly call a timeout, or sorry, I don't think they smartly call a timeout, but they call a timeout with 2:07 left or 2:06 left. You've now given the Rams the opportunity to potentially throw on this down. Like, I don't understand why you call that timeout there. Because I'll reverse it the other way first. If you don't call the timeout, it runs down to the 2-minute warning. You have an extra timeout now. It's 3rd and 8. They are more than likely going to run the ball because they know if they don't, the clock stops and then they have to punt it. When you call that timeout with 2:06 left, whether they run it or pass it,
which I know feels pedantic, but the second matters because.
But it doesn't. I'll tell you why it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because even if it goes to 2:01, say they throw it, right? And it's incomplete and it goes to 2:02, they have to punt the next play. So it automatically gets wiped out with the punt. So either way, it doesn't matter. If they threw an incompletion and let's say it goes to 2:03 and now they're 4th and 10, they have to punt and the change of possession would stop the clock anyway. So they lose that 2-minute warning in the punt. So either way, they've lost that 2-minute warning. And all you've done is given Sean McVay now the option to throw the ball with no consequence of the clock. Like, it is such a dumb move. And what's even dumber is Sean McVay then fucking runs it. Like, why are
Well, he
you
had to run
running
it
it
because
unless
he
you
had to get to
literally
the.
thought? No, you
He
don't.
had
You don't have to get to the 2-minute
you
warning.
you do though.
No, you don't. Say you throw it. Say he throws it and he throws an incompletion. What happens?
Say it's 2:01. They now punt,
Okay.
and then
They
the
punt.
punt return will be the 2-minute warning will like you if you do the math, you'll end up with a couple of seconds more as a result. I mean,
They
which
got the
again,
ball.
it's yeah, but
They got the ball back
so
with
yeah, they got the
the
ball
same
back
thing
with a
happens
minute. No,
with
it's
2
not the
minutes
same
left.
thing. If No, because if you don't
With
call the
150.
timeout
With
on
150.
yeah, so if you don't call the timeout on the third, so you're going to call the timeout after the 2-minute warning is basically what you're saying. So
Yes.
regardless, you're using the timeout, but then it's the same
No, I
because
understand that. No, it's
so
the
you're
same for the
advocating not
Bears.
using a timeout.
Yes, I'm saying I would rather not use the timeout. I'm saying more for the McVay part. For the Bears part, if you don't use the timeout, you force McVay to have to run it. Because you run it to the 2-minute warning, and then you
Mhm.
force him to have to kind of run it. Because otherwise, if he throws an incompletion, then there's 157 left. So you kind of have to run it to make the Bears call that timeout after. That one I'm kind of okay with either way if you want to do it. But what it did give is McVay the option to pass, and that's where I think the bad coaching is why
But
you just concede to run the ball on a 3rd and 10
so
is completely pointless.
So I disagree with you. I think time is always more valuable. I think people overvalue timeouts in late game scenarios. Like the only time the timeouts, and this is the only time I will complain about people using timeouts, is they only matter to have enough timeouts to force your opponent, like to give yourself the possibility of getting the ball back. Other than that, timeouts to me, people treat them as this special thing that ultimately then they end up like if you're telling me that the Bears were going to get the ball back with 2 timeouts on offense in a 2-minute drive, they're probably not calling 2 timeouts in that scenario. It's just not happening. Like unless they literally at one moment decide to take the luxury of big 3rd down coming, let's just call a timeout and gather our thoughts, which I think the impossible data to process, but I think the success rate of the timeout to compose yourself and get your best play, I actually feel like you tend to like not do very well out of those timeouts. But
That'd be an interesting one. Yeah, no,
it would maybe next,
the
but to code if you
the
don't
Bears
call,
timeout. No, I agree with you. The Bears timeout, you get the ball back basically the same amount of time with the same amount of timeouts. The I'm not complaining about him calling the timeout for that. I'm complaining about him calling the timeout to then allow McVay the option to pass the ball, where they're
but
kind
I
of
don't
forcing
think.
his hand to run it.
See, I think his hand was forced to run it anyway.
No, it's not. It's 100% not.
I don't
You could
think.
work out the math. There's 2:07 left, right? On
Yeah,
3rd
but
down.
here's the thing is there's the math element and there's the scenario element, which is the math element is, okay, let's say you don't call a timeout, it gets down to 2-minute warning.
No.
They then
I'm not.
what?
I'm talking about the McVay part.
But which is the McVay part?
The
He didn't
McVay
call the
part is
timeout.
on third. No, is on 3rd and 10. He runs
Yeah,
the
and he ran
ball.
the ball. Yeah, and I think he
Yeah.
was gonna run the ball no matter what.
So if you think
Like, I do
if he had the game on the line, so you think if they were down 3 on 3rd and 10, he runs the
No,
ball?
but that's not okay. No, and if we were playing the game on Mars, he might have decided to leap over everyone. Like eh,
What?
no, he's winning. He's up a touchdown. He is not going to risk in somewhat difficult environments, in difficult conditions. He is not going to risk turning the ball over. Basically, he is. I mean, you're talking about a game at that time. It's 17-10. He's going to. I honestly should be just trusting his defense. So the idea should be run the ball. Maybe we get lucky and pick up a 1st down. In the very least, we force them to use timeouts at different moments in time, or in the very least, we get the ball to the 2-minute warning, which the possibility if he passes, like the idea you could say is if with 2:07, they might not hit the 2-minute warning on the ensuing. Like, you still buying yourself an extra 5 or 6 seconds. I don't think you're radically changing the Rams play calling.
Oh, I think that's crazy. I think it's crazy that the Rams would just concede not trying to win the game outright there and just like run to not turn the ball over.
But they don't
Like
technically win.
maybe that's true.
They don't actually win the game there. So say they'd thrown it on the at the 207, and let's say they get the first down.
Okay.
Clock stops because it's a 2-minute warning. So
Yep.
there's no runoff from the previous play. The Bears still have a timeout. So
One timeout.
they still need another first down to end the game. Like, yes, you put yourself in an incredibly strong position because if you run 3 times, they're getting the ball back with 30 seconds left. But
Maybe.
You're still saying, well, yeah. I mean, you're using the timeout. Like, first play is let's say saying a run, let's be generous, takes 10 seconds, a minute 50, then 40. Like, it's still 30 seconds left when you're getting the ball back, but possibly a little more, sorry. Yeah, you're in a very strong position at that stage. But you're not, the first down is not, it's not, we win the game with a first down. We're 2 first downs away from winning the game.
Yeah, but then you're giving the ball back, you're punting it to them with under 30 seconds left and having to drive an entire field with no timeouts to get a touchdown.
Yeah, and you could kind of say that, like, again,
I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe he just wanted to play so conservative that you don't want to. It didn't work. They scored.
It pretty much worked. Like, you're one play away from it working. You're one push off away being called from probably working. I'll put it this way. I think if you had been able to freeze time at the moment in which Caleb Williams was kind of stupidly scrambling backwards,
backpedaling 20 yards
on
30
4th
yards.
and 4, and if you'd frozen it there and said to Sean McVay, do you think you were right in terms of how you handled your last offensive possession? He probably would have said to you, I'm pretty comfortable with where we are right now. Like, it feels like the strategy worked. All right, now we'll get on to, you're a big, Caleb Williams is a gamer guy. And look, the success he's had in big moments is undeniable. So I'm not going to kind of zag for the point of it and say, like, I don't trust him in big moments, because, we've spoken on the podcast consistently about he just seems to have something in him, like the guts to go for risky things. And, that being said, I do feel like this game, the iconic play is going to overshadow other missed opportunities in big moments, where it's like you can't just credit him for one crazy play and say, like, oh, ice in his veins, but then overlook, for example, the previous possession where he can't punch it in on their 1st and goal from the 5, and they don't get a touchdown, and he throws an incompletion on the 4th down going for it. Like, that has to be factored into how clutch is he. And then also, I know everyone's criticizing DJ Moore, probably rightfully, for his lack of effort on the interception. And that's true. You watch the replays, he's not taking the space that probably Caleb Williams is expecting him to take, and he's not running at the speed that Caleb Williams is probably expecting him to run at. But it's still not a great throw. I still think even if he does all that right, it's a bad throw. And so, like, to me, I judge him more for those failures in a sense than for one crazy play where he ran backwards for 20 yards and then managed to throw a really great pass to the corner of the end zone.
Yeah, I'll give him a slight pass on the 1st and goal where they go downs, because there's not much you can do in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. They just hand it off to Swift. I didn't like those calls very much. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Again, like, you have someone like Caleb Williams, utilize them, roll them out, run it. Do something a little creative with it. Didn't love that, but the pass was not a good pass that he actually then does throw on 4th down. So he should have punched that in, but it's tough when he actually only has one opportunity there. But the interception at the end, I think that's the part where, like, having that always go for it mentality ended up hurting him, because at the same time, the drive before, he makes this crazy throw and it works and it's great, but then you have the ball. I think it was only second down that when he threw that a pick, right? Like it wasn't third or fourth down. Like it was only second down. You were kind of driving a little, like you only needed maybe 2 more first downs to give yourself a shot maybe, like you you weren't way backed up, you were in midfield kind of thing, and it's too risky of a throw to make. Like I agree DJ Moore should be making a better effort there, but at the same time, you don't need to make a risky throw in that scenario. I think you could see that you were kind of almost breaking their spirit a little bit, with like short pass, short run, short pass, short run. Like it was kind of working, and like they were at the 50. Like you didn't have much further to go. You didn't need to throw a 20. What was that? Like a 30-yard pass. Like, you did not need that at all.
Yeah, 26 yards, well, from the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, 30-yard pass attempt
Yeah.
probably. They were second and 8 on the Rams' 48. So, yeah, they needed
maybe even maybe 10 more yards. Maybe you got a shot, right?
They needed a 15 more yards to probably feel pretty good. Like it's tough conditions, and you're weighing up the risk of missing a field goal and giving the Rams really good field position. So obviously that's not where they wanted to get to. But yeah, if they got to the Rams 35, I think they're attempting a 52-yard field goal to win a playoff game. Like that's probably happening. So yeah, it just felt you can't. It's one iconic pass sandwiched between two poor decisions. And I know that the nature of the beast is that people will only remember that pass. And that's fine because it's still a crazy throw. Like the arm strength on display, and we spoke about it the week before in that throw against the Packers. Like there's not a lot of quarterbacks. There may not even be another quarterback in the league who can kind of actually make that throw. But still doesn't mean that you just go like, wow, never messes up in critical situations.
But there are a lot of quarterbacks that could make that interception throw at the end.
Yeah. But then there are also a lot of quarterbacks who would have punched it in on first and goal from the 5, so that's the, and you're right. Like you can't shut off what he does in those miraculous moments. Like the trade-off there is there's going to be mistakes and stupid things, because that's like, you can't just sort of coach him in a way where you're like, only do the crazy stuff when the crazy stuff works. Like only take the shot when you're absolutely know you're going to do it. But then at the same time, we know that most of the time you probably don't know that you're really going to be able to pull that off. So like, I don't even know how to instruct you. But yeah, he's the big, speaking about feeling worse about the Patriots and the Texans coming out of that game. And in particular, I think CJ Stroud is the biggest loser of these playoffs, because I think it's knocked him. Well, I just think my perception of him, I said already, I don't think now that Josh Allen's going to win a Super Bowl. CJ Stroud, like, I don't think CJ Stroud I don't know if he's a real starting quarterback. Caleb Williams is the big winner of the playoffs, even though he only got to play in 2 rounds, because I think he's now pushed himself very much into this is the player who is going to compete for being the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. The not a bust. We are right, like a year away, like a year off. Last year, people had already talked about whether he was going to be a bust. And I think this season in general has turned around, but these last 2 games, actually, I'd say like the last month in particular, has really elevated him now from not being a bust to potentially being one of the future great quarterbacks of the NFL.
Yeah. And obviously you got to be cautious, because coming out of his rookie season, expectations for CJ Stroud were so high. So that's a good example of how a good run, and CJ Stroud in a sense was kind of doing a lot of what Caleb Williams is doing now, which is like game-winning drives and incredible throws in tough situations. So having just said that, I think Caleb Williams has put himself into the sort of tier 2 of quarterbacks, I guess. That would be the asterisk that I would add, which is one season is, that's a lot of assumptions are being made on one season of success. But yeah, I think
it's encouraging to like be trending up Like
Yeah.
have your second season be better than your first, whereas CJ Stroud was great his rookie year and kind of has been in a downfall since.
I don't know who the Bears would trade Caleb Williams for. I'm not sure now that there is a single quarterback in the league who, and that's not to say he's better than all of them, but like you're obviously not you're not bringing in
The
Mahomes at
potential.
his age. Joe Burrow is better, but then Joe Burrow is injured consistently every
Oof.
season. So I'd rather have Caleb Williams, who seemingly has, more endurance than Joe Burrow. I guess it's Josh Allen is the one who maybe that's the move you make. He's still like kind of coming into his prime. You have 10 years left with him, but I don't necessarily know. It's not Herbert, that's for sure.
Easy.
It's not Drake Maye, although I guess some people might think that. It's not Brock Purdy.
Matthew Stafford.
Again, age factor, no.
Yeah.
If Caleb Williams
the
ends up
potential
having
is so high.
if
Yeah.
Caleb Williams ends up having Matthew Stafford's career, then that's fantastic. But and he probably won't reach those heights. But yeah, you don't want to. Matthew Stafford maybe has 2 years left in him. Any other NFL talking points to cover?
No, I mean, we obviously mentioned it that McDermott had gotten fired. If I'm a Giants fan, I still think I'd rather Harbaugh anyway. So I guess the question is, Stefanski went to. Oh, we didn't talk about that, right? So Harbaugh is going to the Giants, and Stefanski's going to. Who signed him? I
Falcons.
can't remember now. The Falcons. That's right. Would you rather Stefanski or would you rather McDermott if you were the Falcons? Did you jump too early for Stefanski there?
I'm not convinced at all by McDermott.
Okay.
I'm not convinced much by Stefanski either, but
You've never gotten over the 9/11 comments.
I don't know. Neither of those are guys who I want to be the second team employing them as a head coach, because it could be that you're the second team and everyone goes, wow, they were highly touted when they, like when McDermott became the Bills head coach, or Stefanski at the Browns, and Stefanski won coach of the year twice with the Browns. So it could be the Falcons put Stefanski in place, and now 2-3 years from now, everyone's saying like we always knew like it was just the Cleveland Browns were too much of a mess, or the Bills like where he's being unfairly judged for a couple of tight playoff game losses, but his entire body of work is actually pretty fantastic. There's that scenario. Or 2 or 3 years from now, you've already fired each of them, and it's like, yeah, McDermott won some games because he had the best quarterback in the league and a pretty easy division for most of his time that he was there. So, of course, things were easy. And then Stefanski, like the Browns were terrible with Stefanski, and the only time he had a talented quarterback, which was Baker Mayfield, it appears that it was him who forced Mayfield out. So like he actually made his situation worse than it needed to be at the same time, and also had one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL and still couldn't be competitive for large parts of that stint. Like, I don't know. It feels like a big risk to me to be. I would rather be the third employer when they've proven themselves somewhere, but second time, I don't want to be second chance saloon for either one of those head coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I don't think either of them. Well, I don't know if either of them are great coaches or just have lucky scenarios. I mean, Stefanski did have the 1 year that they were really good. He won the coach of the year on with a team that probably was never as good as a team with Josh Allen. So maybe there's a little more potential there.
And a tough division. He's dealt with a really tough division the entire time he's been there. So it's the opposite of the McDermott situation. He wasn't just being handed 6 wins a season. Like the Browns were always going to have to fight to get to 8 or 9 wins. Yeah. Yeah, but and pre Drake Maye. If you're like this season was
boy.
No, but like the Patriots are kind of back now. So again, this is the prospect for an incoming Bills head coach is that actually some of the standards that they might now be held to, which is like, yeah, we win 12 to 13 games every year. It's like, yeah, except you were always beating the Patriots twice, and now we're probably going to split that. And like the Jets and the Dolphins aren't going to be as incompetent as maybe they have been for the last few years. I would rather hire McDaniels than either of those two, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Ooh,
I think the high
controversial
we
call.
saw in that period with the Dolphins of just how electric their offense felt. And then again, that's building off how good he was with the Niners offense. I would rather say there, like, he might have a level of talent that neither of those two have. Now, I guess we can briefly talk. Last episode we did speak a bit about the college football championship game tonight, but to kind of transition us into college football, I don't know if you saw, but President Trump is signing an executive order. Did you see this? Which has an impact on college
For the
football.
Army-Navy game?
Yes. So the Army-Navy games 4-hour time slot on the second Saturday in December is now blocked off. So it belongs exclusively to Army-Navy. And in the words of Trump, and only Army-Navy, I will soon sign a historic executive order securing an exclusive 4-hour broadcast window so this national event stands above commercial postseason games. No other game or team can violate this time slot.
Oh,
According
Lord,
to him,
violate.
Yes. He continues, the Army-Navy game is one of our greatest American traditions, unmatched patriotism, courage, and honor. This incredible tradition is now at risk of being pushed aside by more college football playoff games and big TV money. Not anymore, all caps. It's like a Seinfeld character, like George making a declaration.
I have no problem with it or no issue with it. It's just the Army-Navy game is a pretty big deal, and there are a lot of people that go to the Army-Navy game. I have a few family members that almost go every year, and it's a big deal, and that's great. And not taking away from the fact that the teams aren't that great, and they have these weird schedules that makes them look better than they are, and all of that. That's fine. I just don't think there's that many people that are going to watch it on television. Like, I think it's a big attraction, but I think it's a big attraction for the people who are going. I don't think I've ever watched an Army-Navy game. And
So
I think there are
have.
probably a lot of people that haven't. And even if it was the only thing on, I still don't think I'd watch it.
So I haven't. I watched it this
It's
season.
just a random game. It's
Yeah,
not
well,
it's not a random game, but it's
but
it doesn't
I would count.
decide anything.
Yeah, okay, but there's that isn't the argument. The argument, right? But mm, look, who cares ultimately in this decision? But the point, I kind of similar along with you, but I don't think there's anybody who's going to watch the Army-Navy game on TV who isn't already. Because I watched the Army-Navy game this year, so I saw what else was on TV. Like, I weighed up my options. It wasn't like I really wanted to watch it. I was awake and flipping through, and there were other college football games going on. None of any with any major implications. None of them were good. And so I watched the Army-Navy game. It's not as if I was like, damn, it's Alabama, Georgia right now, but the Army-Navy game's on. I better make a decision as to whether I want to watch good football or lean into this weird patriotic collegiate event. So, like, the fact that it might simultaneously right now, there might be like some Cal Poly team against Hawaii, State or something, whatever game is being played. I don't think that's the issue. Like, if you're going to watch it, you're going to watch it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think ultimately what it is just make something to make sound better than
yes,
like it actually is.
It's virtue signaling of the worst kind, which is, look how much I love the Army and Navy. I'm going to protect them, not from wars, because they might be going to that, but we are going to protect their football teams from exclusive broadcast windows. But anyway, that's as political as I'll get on the podcast. So, college football. I mean, we spoke about the game last episode, so we don't have to spend too long. Your pick still Indiana?
Well, I mean, I really haven't won anything this whole weekend, so maybe I should just change it. just that's how that's going. No, I still think Indiana is the much better team here, and I think they're just going to overpower them on both sides of the ball. Yeah, I'll stick with Indiana.
All right. Yep, same. Football-wise, I guess we can quickly do Premier League. Manchester United, obviously under a caretaker manager, put in a really good performance against Manchester City, beat Manchester City 2-0. Sort of dominated large parts of the game, deserved to win. It wasn't sort of one of those fluky ones where they scraped goals against a run of play. They looked notably better than they did under Amorim, and City continue to look slightly off the pace. It's weird. End of 2025, they looked unstoppable, and then as if the transition to 2026, they've just struggled. They're not scoring goals defensively. They could never be trusted, but they're still defending poorly. But the goals are not flying in like they were for the final couple months of 2025. Pressure building on Guardiola that he may be forced out with Maresca available. It seems a little dramatic, but you never know. And then, they're handing Arsenal the title in the process, even though Arsenal are struggling to get wins themselves. And every time it feels like, every time it feels like, City lost the lunchtime kickoff. Arsenal are playing in the evening. If Arsenal beat Nottingham Forest, then this title race is over. And then they kind of huff and puff against Nottingham Forest and get a 0-0 draw and kind of convince yourself, like, I don't know, maybe City can still close the gap. I think this is Arsenal's title at this stage, though.
Yeah, it's tough. That Arsenal match was not very good. I actually watched some of that. It was pathetic to not get all three there. I mean, the City, they have just signed Guehi, so is that going to change it?
It should make them slightly more solid defensively, and for £20 million, feels like a good signing. But. And I feel sorry for Crystal Palace. Obviously, that's caused huge issues at Crystal Palace with, Glasner coming out and speaking about how he feels like Crystal Palace and the fans and everyone have been betrayed, and that the sort of good work that they're putting in is being undone. Which, look, it's football. And if they'd wanted to maximize the value of Guehi and prepare appropriately for this season, then they should have sold him to Liverpool in the summer when Liverpool wanted to buy him and he wanted to leave. And they blocked that move. And in doing so, you're putting yourself in a situation where now you may have to sell a player at an inopportune moment. And that's basically what's happened. Maybe he would have liked to have been more involved in that decision-making process. But, look, that's a Crystal Palace team that has taken advantage of smaller clubs in similar predicaments. So you can't criticize your own club for being subject to the same sort of football financial environment that every other club that you buy players from is basically having to respond to. So yeah, it's probably a good signing. I don't know if it's a good enough signing to make up the 7-point gap between Manchester City and Arsenal. But yeah, you'd expect that he at least could be a calming influence defensively. And they're throwing youngsters out to play center back who should not be playing Premier League football. So it's probably good from that perspective.
Might be a little too late.
Might be. And for him, you had to say great move for Guehi, because now in the build up to a World Cup, he gets to be an English center back playing in title challenging run plus Champions League football. Yeah. And so in terms of him securing the knock on him in terms of should he be starting for England in the World Cup would be he's not playing at the same level. He doesn't have the necessary experience, and this allows him to prove himself. So
huge opportunity. Yeah.
And then obviously in our group chat with friend of the podcast, Ollie, he was bringing up the drama in the African Cup of Nations last night, which I was not watching when it happened, but I have watched this morning. Crazy set of circumstances. So for those who didn't watch, Morocco, it was the final of the African Cup of Nations between Senegal and Morocco. It was plagued by poor sportsmanship throughout, which has kind of been a theme of the African Cup of Nations. A big thing being like ball boys or support staff doing things like taking towels and water bottles away from the goalkeepers. This has been like a big, and that was happening. And then Morocco were awarded a controversial penalty in injury time. Senegal were so unhappy with this fact that they left the pitch. So most of their players went down the tunnel. A couple didn't, including Sadio Maye, who kind of tried to stay out there to sort of get the match going again. And for a long time, based on the reports, most of the Senegalese players did not want to return to the pitch and were happy to kind of forfeit the match, but were convinced to come back out. Now, when they came back out, I think it was a 17-minute delay, something along those lines. The penalty was the first thing that was then taken. So Brahim Diaz took the penalty. He went for a Panenka, like a little chip down the middle. The goalkeeper didn't move. None of the Senegalese players celebrated when the penalty was saved. Now, this is a 0-0 match in injury time. Basically, if Morocco had scored, it's almost certainly game over.
Okay.
Speculation is that it was a somewhat controversial penalty and that there was an agreement made between Morocco and Senegal that if the match was going to be restarted, the penalty was going to be intentionally missed. And so that's why he dinked it down the middle. The goalkeeper didn't move and nobody celebrated or really reacted to the miss. I don't know if this is true. Watching it
weird.
Otherwise, when you see no Senegalese players celebrate, it's hard to not think that there was some kind of agreement made.
But why would Morocco agree to that?
Maybe if they agree that it wasn't really a penalty, maybe there was some level of sportsmanship on their part. But I agree. I agree with you. Like
the ultimate sportsmanship. That is like the ultimate sportsmanship we've never seen in sports before.
They just really believe in the spirit of the game and they wanted the final to be completed. I don't know. The only thing you could say is they realized, the African Cup of Nations is always, like there's a lot of pushback at times, because it takes place in the middle of the European footballing calendar and players leave from big clubs. And at least once a season, a pundit, usually more than one, gets themselves into trouble for saying something along the lines of, and I think we even discussed it maybe last year on the podcast, but someone saying something like, I don't understand why Mo Salah is leaving this critical moment for Liverpool to go off and play for Egypt. And then people push back like, it's just as important as the Euros. It's just as good as the Euros. It's as good as any continental competition. And that's fine. But when you see such a farce like this in the final, like, this isn't me trying to stir up controversy, but no matter what you say, that isn't happening in a final between England and France or Germany and Italy or whatever it is. You're not seeing the Italians walk off the pitch for 20 minutes because they're not happy with a decision. And so maybe the Moroccans, in a sense of the importance of the competition not being completely marred by just a tragic ending that would have, I don't know, potentially, maybe it would have been harder next time around to convince players to come out if, like, this is what was going to happen.
Do you think that helped
in games
at the end of the day?
Maybe it will be more. It will probably be more easily forgotten now. Like if the final had ended there and then, 0-0, but Morocco being awarded like by forfeit, then that's always there. Whereas now the history books, the score just says Senegal won 1-0 in extra time, which I guess is the thing worth noting for listeners who didn't see it. Senegal went on to win. So the move worked completely. They should be losing in a penalty, in injury time, and instead they're scoring an extra time winner to lift the trophy. So, all came up roses for Senegal.
That's crazy. I mean, then win is insane. So you know what this proves? Walking off the pitch works.
Yeah, this is the issue, is that you now see this and think, yeah, we should, someone should try this. Because all that ended up happening basically is 2 players were booked as a result. And I'm sure there'll be fines.
Who pays?
Yeah, if anyone. I mean, based on how the organization that was shown in the management of that final, I don't think I'm responding to a letter asking me to make payment. So, any other sporting topics to discuss?
No, that's about it. I mean, most of the weekend was just taken up by football. So,
did you watch episode 2 of The Pitt?
Oh, I did. Always. Have you?
Yes, I have, yes. Pretty good episode. Not the most. It was just sort of, I don't want to be dismissive, but kind of a filler episode. Like there was no huge character
So
developments,
if
I
you
don't
haven't
think.
seen episode 2 of The Pit, then you might not want to listen.
Yeah, this is probably the end of the conversation for you.
Because,
But
spoiler, there is a big surprise.
yeah, no big surprises.
Well, no, let's just say HBO is pushing the envelope with the amount of male nudity they like to show. I mean, this is now
Oh, yeah, there was a prosthetic penis at one point being drained because the guy had been.
prosthetic erect penis being drained of
Yeah.
blood for a good 30 seconds on camera.
Yeah, which kind of felt beneath the pit a little bit. Like it felt an unnecessary, like, and I get it. I'm sure that happens with some degree of regularity in an ER, and so it's, you might have doctors saying it's important to show this because actually a surprising percentage of our work is taken up by draining hard penises that have been erect for, more than the recommended period of time. But it just felt a little bit to me like, this is like
Do you
low hanging
think
fruit, so to speak.
do you think the low hanging fruit was when they started draining it enough? And then she said, "How do you know when you're done?" And then she said, "When it starts to get floppy like this."
Yes.
Do you think that was maybe just one too much?
Yeah, I think there was, yeah, like,
Which again, I'm sure you're right, probably does happen with
well,
regularity in the ER.
yeah. I mean, based on the frequency with which you see ads for drugs to help you maintain an erection, then I would have to imagine that there are probably a lot of people suffering from some of the potential, risks. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like we didn't really learn anything about either of of any of the characters involved in terms of them handling it. And it just felt like an easy way to have a few jokes and then kind of also make Noah Wiley's character like he did have the one like bad moment of saying like better her than me. And then
Yeah.
like instantly apologizing for it, but it was kind of like, oh, he's up until this moment, he's just been the super likable guy. This is the first moment of him overstepping the mark a little bit. I don't know. It just, well,
Yeah, he's
I
going
don't
away
know.
on vacation. He's not worried.
Yeah. Other than that, just kind of
Yeah,
a
good episode.
good episode, but a nothing episode. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It just was an episode of an hour of ER activity. I guess it pushes us further towards Bryan Cranston's daughter's character being like more autistic than even season 1 kind of alluded to. That's sort of where we're going with her character.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe she's just really preoccupied and now concussed.
Yeah, but a lot of the behavior was pre-concussion.
Yeah,
Like
maybe she's just worried
when
about the trial or
I'm
the
sure she is, but
malpractice.
I guess the implication is that nerve and stress is revealing parts of her
Yeah.
that up until that moment she'd been able to kind of keep slightly in check. And the scene where I can't remember any of these doctors' names, but the one who had to take a break for drug usage, closes the door and shuts the lights off
Oh,
for
yeah.
her and kind of gives the treatment to her that she had shown him to give to someone in an autistic person in season 1. Maybe a little too on the nose of the only thing that really blew my mind with that soundproof hospital door. He closes that door,
That was nice.
silence in that room.
Yeah.
I've yet to be in a hospital with and I don't go to very
Where was that
hospitals
when
very
your
frequently.
gallbladder got taken out?
never been in a hospital where someone closed the door and you're just like, oh my God, this is perfect conditions now.
But
And yeah, other than
I
that,
guess the other thing too is I, at the same time, I'm still trying to pick apart, like, there's obviously going to be a bigger storyline somewhere, but trying to kind of tease out what it's going to be. Like last year, they kept mentioning Pit Fest, that kept getting thrown out all the time. And, you don't know what this year, if there's going to be something, or if there is something, what will the big storyline be? So still waiting for that, I think.
yeah. And unless it is just going to be the conflict between Dr. Robbie and Dr. Al Hashimi and the sort of conflicting approaches to managing people and the usage of technology. You know, and then I guess the developing rivalry between Javadi and that guy, the other intern.
Oh yeah,
Just kind of
trying to see who's
repeating,
smarter.
yeah, by just regurgitating memorized information. Yeah, good. I did start watching Seven Dials on Netflix. Say Agatha Christie adaptation with
Oh
Martin
yeah,
Freeman.
yes, the new Agatha Christie.
It's okay. I mean, it's
Yes.
just an Agatha
How is it?
Christie TV show. It's fine. Like if you're in the mood for a sort of polite murder mystery where everything kind of moves sort of slowly, but then it's fine. It's I wouldn't discourage people from watching it, but it is what it is. Like it's not going to blow your mind away. But if you like Poirot or like Sherlock Holmes, all that kind of stuff, it's
I'll
along a
probably
similar
watch it.
lines.
It looks decent. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Anything? This would please you. Yesterday I went to my gym. I went in the sauna afterwards. And just a guy fully nude, just laying. Not even, usually the nude guys are like sitting up. This guy just laying back. And I nearly said something. Like it was like close to drawing a comment out for me. Because it's also fascinating. The nude guys, again, always older. So I was tempted to ask him, but I couldn't, especially because it would have had to have been like not in my mother tongue. So not being able to strike, running the risk that I don't strike quite the right tone or have the perfect wording in trying to sort of playfully prove a point. I did kind of want to ask if there is a certain age at which you become just comfortable just going fully nude in a sauna and kind of laying back and stretching your legs out. Like if that's, but I decided against it.
It's unreal. There has to be like an age tipping point. Because I have been in many scenarios where there are naked men in there, and it's never like a 22-year-old.
No.
Or like,
No.
like
I've seen
a
a
guy
couple,
out of college.
I'm in fairly regularly. There have been a couple who are maybe in their 30s or 40s. It's super rare though. But yeah, in the last year in which I've been going to this particular sauna, I've probably seen 300 fully nude guys, and 290 of them have been 65 or older. It's like you retire and you decide, one of the perks of retirement? Nude in the sauna. And because the thing that blows my mind about it is it can't be any more. Like I've never been in the sauna and gone, God, these shorts are so restrictive. If I could just remove them, then like I'd really be able to embrace the heat and I've never, that's the thing I can't wrap my head around is like, and if you're one of those guys of like, I came to the gym, all I have is like my gym stuff, and then I have the clothes I'm going to change into afterwards. So I don't really want to come in the sauna with my sweaty gym stuff. Okay, then wrap a towel around you and come in with the towel wrapped around you. And then don't come in with a towel wrapped around you and then unwrap the towel and sit on it and just stretch out. Like leave the towel wrapped around your waist. I don't get it.
There's no point to it. No. I want to know the study that shows that gets you more benefits out of the sauna.
No, and it's impossible. I'm not I don't feel uncomfortable around it. It's impossible not to look. It just is impossible. And in the rare moments, I'm not even just talking.
It's impossible to like, not look.
Yes. It's not even pit-wise of like the penis actually isn't the thing that even interests me the most. It'll be things like they'll be laying back and stretching. It's like, I now have to stare directly into your butthole because there's a gravitational pull of my eyes towards this black hole that is appearing.
How are they stretching?
Oh, you'll see routinely
throwing their legs behind their head?
Like babies, like pulling their knees into their chests.
Oh my God.
Just fully nude.
What kind of sauna are you going to?
So that is literally.
Are you sure this is a gym sauna you're going to?
If you told me, like, if the dare had been go in the sauna and find the best way to expose your butthole, that would be the exact activity that you would engage in. But we'll see.
Oh my God.
The a Topolino update too. I've been driving around actually quite a bit over the last few days because it's been raining and been doing different things and going to a few different parks with the dog and stuff. Keep getting overtaken by people. I'll be in a 30-kilometer zone. I'll be doing 33, 34.
Oh boy.
And people will fly by me.
By people walking?
And I'll always give a little honk. It makes me laugh a bit. And sometimes I'm kind of genuine of like, look, we're on a road that's 30, but like there are lots of people crossing the road on a frequent basis. If you're flying down this road at 45 kilometers an hour, you are running a serious risk. Yesterday, coming back from the gym, person gave a honk, and it was on a road. There is a speed bump probably every 100 yards, and then we were probably 250 yards away from traffic lights. So they went by me.
He honked at you because you weren't going fast enough.
Didn't honk at me. I could tell him behind. You can feel the frustration and so I knew he was going to overtake me. As he went by, I gave a little like beep beep as he pulled by me. Of the like, don't do that. And not an intimidating horn. Then pulled up to the traffic lights in front, gave him another little beep of like, look, you've done this and I'm still behind you. And then we went another 100 meters and just to make myself laugh, pulled up behind him again. And I gave him another little beep beep of like, look, you did all that and here I am. I'm still here. The person driving with me did not find this to be amusing. And I was warned that road rage is a real thing and that at some point someone is going to get out. As funny as I find it to be, someone is going to get out and want to fight me.
Someone's going to get out and just push your car over.
Which the only thing I love about that, not that I don't get road rage, nor do I want to get in a fight on the side of a road because someone decided to drive 42 into 30. But the person who does get out, if it ever gets to that moment, who sees my car and then gets a couple beeps and decides I'm going to get out and teach that person a lesson, when they get out of their car is not expecting to see me in the driver's seat is all I'm going to say. Because they're going to be like, this 15-year-old like kid behind me who's giving a couple of beeps, I'm going to get out and teach them a lesson. And it's like, oh no, it's a fully grown man.
I love the annoying beeps though, just because it's like you're driving like a fucking race, like a little mini car.
The thing is, too, it's not even satisfying to beat people because, again, the horn is not on the steering wheel, which is pretty common now. But it's not even like buttons on the steering wheel. It is on the end of like where the indicators are. You press the button at the end of that. So it's not even a like physically satisfying like like reaction. It's like you almost forget where it is at first, and then I have to like reach the end and be like beep beep as if I'm sort of pushing a ballpoint pen.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
that's great.
So
I love it.
We'll see. I'm about to drive it off to the gym now, so we'll see if I get how many times I get overtaken. We'll set the over under. I'll give 2.5 overtakes on the round trip journey.
That's crazy. You get overtaken that much. All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll call it a day.
Sounds good.
Talk to you later. Cheerio.